Did you know that the maritime industry is still considered a paper-based industry? Whether it's truck drivers using paper tickets when they in-gate at ports, or simply PDF attachments being used to cobble together the paper trail of cargo's movement. In this world where we always have our cell phones on us, can you imagine that we're still doing this infinitely important business with pieces of paper? We're talking digitization. It's a techie kind of day. Stick around. Hi, welcome to By Land and By Sea, an attorney breaking down the week in supply chain, presented by me, the Maritime Professor. I'm Lauren Beagen, founder of the Maritime Professor and Squall Strategies, and I'm your favorite maritime attorney. Join me every week as we walk through both ocean transport and surface transport topics in the wild world of supply chain. As always, the guidance here is general and for educational purposes. It should not be relied upon and construed to be legal advice. There is no attorney-client privilege created by this video, and if you need an attorney, contact an attorney. So before we get into the discussion of the day, let's go through my top 3 stories of the week. Story number 1. The FMC's extended comment filing period is still open. You have one more week. I've kept this on my top 3 stories of the week because it is that important. The industry, I say this every week, the industry has for years talked about how unfair detention and demurrage charges and their billing methods are. Here is your chance to actually affect that change. We've discussed the Federal Maritime Commission's open rulemaking, the advance notice of proposed rulemaking, where it's reviewing detention and demurrage billing practices. It was previously due on a 30-day comment period, but at the request of a big list of trade associations, it's been extended another 30 days. The comment filing period is April 16th. That's next Saturday. Get those comments in. There really haven't been a flood of comments like I thought there might be. I'm expecting a lot more to come in, hopefully today, maybe Monday. But guys, we're down to one more business week here. This is your chance to really affect the change. Get those comments in. If you want more information on the rulemaking, what it is, how to file, check out my video. It's going to be linked in the show notes. But this is so important. We need the industry to really speak up on how they want to be regulated, because once the regulation comes out, that's it. I mean, it can be modified, but that's really it. This is your chance. Get in there. So story number 2, the Maritime Professor is live. That's me. Follow along on all the traditional platforms of LinkedIn, YouTube, and a still under construction website. But I do expect to have the subscribe button up soon so that you can start looking for, you'll be on my email list and you can look for once the content goes live. There's a lot that goes into building an e-learning platform, but I'm having such a great time with it. And look for the Maritime Professor on fun and quirky platforms too. TikTok and Instagram, those are already up and running. And there's going to be some tips coming out there that aren't going to be part of the full formal learning education, but just some fun stuff that happens over on those platforms. So if you're looking to stand out at work, impressed with your deeper understanding of the maritime industry, if you find yourself on extravagant yachts and you want to be more educated on yacht talk, if you just want to be better on Talk Like a Pirate Day, this is for you. The Maritime Professor will include both free, high-level information and for purchase, deeper dive content. Follow my LinkedIn page, all of those different platforms. And like I said, head over to the website. It's going to be going live shortly, and there will be a subscribe to the email list button. Jump on that email list because that's where we're going to be releasing all of our best information on what's happening and when you can start accessing the e-learning content. The Maritime Professor, we talk ship. So story number 3, Ocean Network Express 1 is an ocean carrier line. They partnered with Google. So on April 5th at Singapore Maritime Week 2022, Ocean Network Express announced a new collaboration with Google. Now, one is a newish ocean common carrier line, 2017-2018. It was a joint venture between 3 Japanese shipping companies. So Kawasaki Kisen Kaisha, which is K-Line, Mitsui OSK Lines, MOL, and Nippon Yusen Kaisha, which is NYK Line. So the Kentaro Yuasa, Deputy General Manager of Enterprise Architecture and Strategy and Innovation at ONE, said of the new activity, and I quote, Ocean Network Express was formed as a new company with a forward-thinking vision. Like I said, the 2017-2018 creation. Continuing the quote, Google Workspace brings our different teams together to create new value for our customers. At the same time, Google Cloud helps us achieve digitalization with a scalable cloud platform for building new products, such as our digital quotation platform that speeds up responses to customer inquiries. Now, some of the promotional messaging just describes Gmail basics, really. Keeping emails together in threads, being able to use Google Meet as a virtual meeting software. Look, it's 2022. At this point, if you weren't already doing that, it's the absence of that tech that says more than the presence of that tech. So, I kept looking to see if there was something more going on than just a catchy headline and helping your employees with their Google Suite. So the press release said, and I quote, the company is establishing an AI center of excellence, so artificial intelligence center of excellence, that will imbue an agile culture across every aspect of its business, pilot and scale AI initiatives that boost competitive differentiation, and become a destination for top technology talent. Okay, that's good. An artificial intelligence center of excellence. That's a good step. You create the structure and things will start to fill in from there. The press release continues, by leveraging Google Cloud's leading data analytics, machine learning, and AI technologies, alongside advisory expertise from Deloitte Consulting Southeast Asia to support its journey, the AI Center of Excellence will help perform one's core operations, strengthen customer engagement, and improve its employee experience. So there it is. They're working with Deloitte as well to find digital growth opportunities for the company. That's really good. So it looks like they're starting to build a culture of digitization, and that is so important. So why didn't they do this before? Well, I've said it a bunch. Ocean carriers didn't make much money for a lot of years, like barely broke even. So there wasn't a lot of money for upgrading of systems. And if it wasn't working relatively well, why change it? So now the system, as we know, isn't really working as well. And there's a heck of a lot of money that's being entered into for these companies. There's a heck of a lot more money just out there in general for ocean shipping. So the companies are upgrading. They're getting some faster, more energy efficient vessels. But I think that they're also, and this is what I was hoping would happen, is they're moving that money over into the tech side. So this is encouraging. I said previously, once the big bucks started rolling in, big tech would be soon to follow. And Google, as we see, has now entered the chat. So One began their work with Google actually last May 2021 when they moved their mission critical SAP systems. Now that's their systems, applications, and products. You might see SAP, all capital letters out there. I like to break down this alphabet soup. So their systems, applications, and products. They moved all that to the Google Cloud last May 2021, which enabled business insights and accelerated their ability to review data analytics. Previously, they relied on SAP accounting systems that were hosted locally in each country, but really, as of last March, they upgraded. So it seems that their first Google step last year went well, and now they're expanding that partnership and automating a little bit more. A Deloitte rep, Chris Lewin, the executive director of Deloitte Consulting Southeast Asia, said, and I quote, by automating manual tasks to increase workforce productivity and employee satisfaction while reducing IT and data management complexities so software engineers and data scientists can focus on innovation, One can now intensify the development of next generation world-class shipping services that bring lasting value to its businesses. Now, essentially what he's saying is, once you've moved things so that your employee base is moving a lot faster and you've moved away from some of that manual and you've created a lot more automation there, it's going to allow all of your employees as a company to move forward into some more complex tech world and some complex solutions that you otherwise wouldn't have had the time to be doing because you were so bogged down in some of the manual pieces of it. So I continue on. It's a privilege to provide AI advisory services to a visionary client like One to help the company build up its AI capabilities and continue its digital transformation momentum. Again, that was the Deloitte rep. So The managing director of Southeast Asia Google Cloud said of the work, with at least 11 billion tons of goods transported by sea each year, one's AI transformation not only future proofs its operations and positions the company as an employer of choice, but also sets the benchmark for creation of even more smart, efficient, and scalable digital solutions that are needed to meet the ever growing demands of businesses and economies around the world. We're thrilled that one has continued to choose Google Cloud as its co-innovation partner as it spearheads a sea change across the maritime transportation industry and demonstrates the accelerated and measurable impact that a cloud-first and unified data strategy can help deliver. So that was the cloud Google rep. Of course, they're going to be saying that this is so great, but it really is. It really is. If they're going to be changing over to automation, if they're going to create some artificial intelligence, some predictive things that happen on just their rudimentary, otherwise daily operations, that's great. Like I said, I'm encouraged by this. I don't think of one as the most tech-forward ocean carrier out there. I think Maersk has actually been more in the forefront of tech. Maybe by necessity. You may remember the ransomware attack of 2017. It was essentially the first of its kind for any ocean carrier. It forced them to deal with their tech operations much earlier than other ocean carriers out there. That was 2017, which ironically is really only 5 years ago. But imagine, this world has changed so much in just 5 years. Zip has also been an industry leader in the online world, particularly in the cybersecurity world for ocean carriers and really any maritime assets. They even created a cybersecurity consultancy for maritime and logistics companies called Cyberstar. Just a side note here, I actually recommend you look up Cyberstar. There are maritime industry veterans that's who works there, and they're available to translate cybersecurity for the maritime industry. They even run mock cyber attack drills. It's some really cool stuff that they have going on at Cyberstar. So like I said, today is a techie kind of day. So let's get into the meat and potatoes. So you may have heard me talk about this in my top 3 stories of the week previously, my top 3 stories of the week, but I thought it deserved a little more discussion and attention. The Federal Maritime Commission's Maritime Transportation Data Initiative, led by Commissioner Carl Bentzel. So what exactly is this Maritime Transportation Data Initiative? So in November 2021, FMC Chairman Dan Maffei directed FMC Commissioner Carl Bentzel to lead this Maritime Transportation Data Initiative. Now, the purpose is to hold meetings with maritime and intermodal stakeholders and focus on 3 key objectives. So 1, cataloging the status quo in maritime data elements, metrics, transmission, and access. 2, identifying key gaps in data definitions, classifications. And 3, developing recommendations for common data standards and access policies and protocols. So meetings are open to the public actually and are being held entirely virtual right now. Every Tuesday at 3 p.m., you can sign in via Zoom and watch the panelists talk to the commissioner. These meetings began December 2021 and will continue through the month of April, with the month of May being a pause and June 1st being their target date for their first release of information, kind of a culmination, and their first summit. I thought this was an appropriate time to reinvigorate interest in these meetings because there's only 2 of these regularly scheduled meetings left, and they're arguably the most important meetings of the entire information gathering phase. The carriers, the ocean carriers, are coming up next. So on April 12th, this coming Tuesday, Commissioner Carl Bentzel is going to host the following carrier representatives: Violetta Chan, Business Coordination Department of Evergreen. You may know Evergreen has been in the news recently. Andrew Donahue, VP of Customer Service at OOCL. Sandeep Govil, he is head of North America Revenue Management at Hapag-Lloyd. John Lauer, he's the Executive VP and Chief Commercial Officer at Matson. Andre Sima, Global Chief Digital and Information Officer at MSC, the Mediterranean Shipping Company. And John Stone, Vice President of BP Strategy and Innovation for Ocean Network Express North America. Now, a part 2 is actually scheduled for the following Tuesday, April 19th. This is a jam-packed 1-hour segment. All those people that I just listed are just on this upcoming week's part 1. That's a 1-hour segment. They might run a little bit over, so you might want to leave extra time if you do tune in. Now, previous meetings have included a whole slew of people from the industry, and I'm going to go through each and every one because I think it's important to see the scope that they have covered with these meetings. It is so valuable. So, drayage trucking was December 14th. Warehouse distribution centers 3PL industry was January 11th. Beneficial cargo owners, January 18th. The chassis industry was January 25th. The railroad industry, February 1st. Federal agencies, which were U.S. Department of Transportation, Customs and Border Protection, Department of Commerce, and Department of Agriculture, were February 8th. Ocean transportation intermediaries, which are freight forwarders and NVOCC, so non-vessel operating common carriers, was February 15th. UPS, FedEx, and Amazon was February 22nd. Large aggregators like Flexport, Expeditors, C.H. Robinson was March 1st. Maritime labor representatives, March 8th. Currently available tech platforms was March 15th. International standards FMC agreements was March 22nd. Marine terminal operators, the ports, was March 29th and April 5th. It was a two-part series. And with the 2 meetings remaining, we have carriers on April 12th and April 19th. So I've mentioned on June 1st, Commissioner Bensel has arranged for an FMC Maritime Transportation Data Summit, which will be held both virtual and in person. He's spoken a little bit about this already and what he intends this to look like, but it sounds like it's going to be both a working session, so breaking into groups of the highlighted panelists through the months, and taking maybe comments and input generally. They have the month of May unscheduled, and that's presumably to pull together their thoughts in advance of this June 1st summit. So these meetings happen on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. What actually happens at these meetings? Like I said, the meetings are virtual and they're via Zoom and they're free and they're open to the public. So anyone can join. So you should join. They typically have anywhere from 40 to 80 participants on the call with only the invited guests on the video speaking. So don't worry, it's very well run. You won't feel overwhelmed by it all. There's just a few talking heads. The panelists are given questions in advance and use those as prompts to start the discussion. So essentially, the questions try to get at what types of data and data systems are available now, what gaps they see in that data, and what types of data they would like to see from other segments of the industry. These prompts are all in the spirit of looking for ways of harmonizing what's already out there. For the hour that the meetings are scheduled, the panelists will present their perspectives on what data they use, usually that's maybe held a little bit closer to the chest, and what data they wish they had, which is identifying the gaps or data availability gaps. So the panelists are actually encouraged to be redundant because there's value in hearing of the redundancies in where the data is sourced or where data availability is still needed. This guided open forum discussion is really an effective way to flesh out the information because while it provides a nice framework to guide the discussion almost always turns into an organic conversation of the panelists reacting and responding to one another. And where else are you going to get a one-on-one perspective from each area of the industry, arguably the entire supply chain, in such an approachable and digestible way? And it's direct from the source. So what really is the purpose of this initiative? Finding those systems that are already out there and streamlining their uses. I was initially surprised to learn just how outdated the world of ocean cargo shipping is when I first entered into ocean cargo shipping as a career, but it's getting better. But PDF attachments and emails is still a primary method of delivering documents. Wouldn't you think there was a portal for that? I mean, there isn't, but we're getting there. So arguably, there is a variation of a portal, the ACE ITDS system, but this was primarily created for security and safety purposes under the authority of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. So ACE ITDS is the Automated Commercial Environment International Trade Data System. I mean, it sounds great. Sounds like it really maybe could have been a nice precursor. But like I said, it was created for safety. So from the CBP's website, they say the Automated Commercial Environment, ACE, is the system through which the trade community reports imports and exports, and the government determines admissibility. CBP Trade applies expertise, technology, and automation to create streamlined and efficient processes to facilitate the global exchange of safe and legitimate goods. Now, CBP, Customs and Border Protection, they really are looking at protecting the homeland. And so that's why they created this with Department of Ag. So from the FDA's website, they also talk about ACE ITDS as a single access point whereby the industry can electronically submit all data required by various government agencies involved in international trade. ACE replaced a previous version, which was an automated commercial system, ACS. Now, in collaboration with the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, again, this was from the FDA's website. So, in collaboration with CBP and 46 partner government agencies, one of those was the Federal Maritime Commission. So, 46 partner agencies. So, that's 48 total government agencies. The FDA has been working to modernize business processes through the implementation of the ACE ITDS system. Now, like I said, this is not really supposed to be used for cargo data intelligence. It was created for the purpose of safety, as indicated by the CBP explanation. And it really has been not exactly the correct platform for what I think the industry is really looking forward for right now, which is the data intelligence, which is the visibility of all data. So getting back to the FMC's MTDI, the Maritime Transportation Data Initiative. This week, American Shipper published an article where they interviewed Commissioner Bensel about the initiative. In it, they asked the commissioner, "Have you been surprised by anything that you've learned so far?" And Commissioner Bensel responded, "It's been surprising how antiquated and labor-intensive some of these information processes are. You have to be a detective to go through and figure out all the conflicting information. For example, the Port of Houston Authority said most of their vessel information was being transmitted by email. You would think that they might have a big board showing what ships were coming in and their status. There are companies that use AIS, Automatic Identification System data, but cargo vessels are mixed in with yachts and tugboats and everything else. It's just not where it should be in terms of being usable and accessible." So I'm not surprised that the Port of Houston is tracking vessels via email. I think that that's probably a pretty common practice. There is a desire, kind of on the ocean port side of things, to maybe move towards an airline's arrivals departures board, but that information is only good as its source and really its method of sourcing. So maybe this is a case of build it and they will come, like build it and they will conform. Maybe if ports implement a giant ticker board like the airlines, the vessels will start pushing their arrivals and departure times into that system. Wouldn't that be nice? You could even link it to real time on the port's website. That would be great. You would know when vessels are coming in and out. And we would have to obviously appropriately secure that information and make sure that those vessels are safe and secure as they're coming in and out. But that would be really great for data visibility. In the American Shipper article, the Biden-Harris administration's FLOW initiative was also brought up. So that's the Freight Logistics Optimization Works FLOW initiative. It's an information sharing initiative to pilot key freight information exchange between parts of the goods movement supply chain. So in the FLOW initiative, there's actually 18 initial participants that represent private businesses, warehousing, logistics companies, ports, and more. Initial criticism, there's been a little initial criticism of the program in that the scope of the participants might have been too limited. I mean, it's 18 participants, which is, a pretty big section. I don't know. You could maybe be unhappy even if you had 100 participants. 18 felt a little limiting. I don't know. It's going to be hard. I think this was a good first step. I'm encouraged by the sheer creation of the group. It may be a little bit of an overlap of what Commissioner Bensel is actually doing with his MTDI activity, the Maritime Transportation Data Initiative we're talking about. And actually, even more historically, this might be a little bit of a repeat effort of Commissioner Rebecca Dye's supply chain innovation teams, the SKY teams. Talked about those before. But all of this attention on fixing the problem will always be a good thing. This certainly wouldn't be the first time the government has duplicated its efforts on something, right? Arguably, it's also running parallel to the National Shipping Advisory Committees that the FMC stood up in 2021 that we actually haven't heard from for a while. So maybe it's time for the FMC to request a public working session of the advisory committees to highlight some of the important work that they're undertaking in their subcommittees, just so that the public can see and be a little bit more brought to light on what they're doing. I'm sure they're going to be creating some sort of a report or presentation, but we haven't heard from them in a while. So when Commissioner Bensel was asked about the FLOW initiative, here's what he had to say, and I quote, "DOT is looking at operational approaches, while the FMC initiative is mission-driven, meaning we have regulatory authority over not only the carriers, but the marine terminal operators, which is the ports. DOT does not have authority to issue standards on port performance. Theirs is an effort to educate on the process of information flow through the supply chain. He continues, think of it this way. We're working toward a baseline. If you don't have a lexicon, a baseline for data in terms of how it's harmonized, then you don't have a foundation on which to build flow or another type of community portal. He continues, also, if they come up with recommendations on how the data elements should be supported and made public, that's great. Ultimately, that's the objective, to set data standards. We're focused on that right now, and the second part is determining how to make it available to the public. We're looking at doing a joint meeting in the fall with Department of Transportation and the Commerce Department after our data summit on June 1st, and we've had time to digest comments related to the recommendation. I think that's great. And I really am encouraged that he will be he plans to have meetings in the fall with Department of Transportation and Commerce Department, because I think that that's where, once you start synthesizing all of the different efforts that are happening across the government, that's where things are really going to start to move forward. So what happens next? I mentioned the summit in June, and in the American Shipper article, Commissioner Bensel actually addressed that and said that at the summit, we can expect to see an unveiling of a proposed data dictionary. Let me say that again. He's hoping by June 1st to unveil a proposed data dictionary. We've talked about that before, that sometimes surface transport and ocean transport might have the same word, but it means different things. Or they might be talking about the same thing, but have two different terms for it. A great example might be per diem and demurrage. That they're talking about, as I know it, demurrage. But it could be, maybe there's nuances to how it's applied. But to have that data dictionary, that is going to be great. Let's all start from one point so that we can all move forward together. Arguably, that's what I tried to do by breaking down the silos here with by land and by sea. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page, talking the same language, and we can build together. He also hopes by June 1st that he can have some identified data gaps and potentially propose recommendations. He mentioned that the summit will allow for breakout sessions. So the participants from all of the panels will be invited back, and the participants will be allowed in these breakout sessions to hammer out and kind of refine the findings that were presented. So you talk about the findings that have been presented, you digest it. Maybe that's making modifications to the data dictionary, the proposed data dictionary. Maybe just the general proposed recommendations that Commissioner Bensel and his team have found will also be hashed out during those breakout sessions. The conclusion of the American Shipper article is a good one. Commissioner Bensel states, right now you have to go to 50 or 60 different websites to figure out what's going on, from trucking to distribution centers. So it has to be put together in a way that's accessible. But that's phase 2. The first goal is getting harmonized data standards in place. I love it. I love a plan. Having the harmonized data standards in place, having that data dictionary in place, and then moving forward with phase 2, synthesizing 50 or 60 different websites into, imagine if we had one. Imagine if we had one place for that all to go. I'm really encouraged by all of this. I've been a big proponent of digitizing the industry, both ocean cargo and the larger supply chain, bringing in the surface transport side. It's so crucial. The port laydown areas are getting filled up, notably seen in the congestion of the West Coast, and every phase of the supply chain thereafter is laden with confusion that truly could have been cleared up with visibility and the predictability that visibility and open data could provide. Now, there's some concern over protecting business secrets, contracted routes, arrangements, but there's ways of anonymizing that information through globally accepted coding, as an example. We already do that in many other areas. So if you open a business, you get a tax code, an EIN number. We could find ways to code shipments so the specifics remain anonymous. But first, we have to know what's out there. And I commend Commissioner Bensel for doing the work to find out. All of these previous panels are on the FMC's YouTube page, so you can go back in time and watch them. I've missed a few over the months myself and had to go back and catch up. It's great. You really do. It feels as though you're still part of it. Seriously, these are incredibly informative and educational. Even if you're not interested in the data discussion, the nuances of hearing about the industry from the direct stakeholder is so invaluable. I'll put the links in the show notes. Take a look. And keep up the good work, Commissioner Bensel. I'm really interested to see where this goes. So questions about any of this? I still have my legal company. Contact me at Squall Strategies, LLC. Again, the guidance here is general and for educational purposes. It should not be construed to be legal advice directly related to your matter. If you need an attorney, contact an attorney. So if you like these videos, let me know. Comment, like, and share. If you missed any previous videos, these videos live on my YouTube page by Land and by Sea. So until next week, this is Lauren Beagen, the Maritime Professor, and you've just listened to By Land and by Sea. See you next time.